Hi, I'm Niamh and I have Cushing's disease caused by a tumour on my pituitary gland. This is me in year 5 in at age 9 and I am very active. I do gymnastics and I love swimming. I'm a good runner and I win the races on sports day. Then in year 6 my body starts to change, but it just feels like normal changes associated with going through puberty. I'm still quite active and enjoy being outdoors, but I start to feel anxious and struggle to sleep at night. I feel nauseous and I need the toilet a lot, especially straight after a meal. My mum takes me to the doctor where we discuss anxiety and weight gain. I have a full set of bloods taken and my celiac marker is high, so I am referred to the gastro team for further testing. Then in year 7, age 11, not long after starting high school, I have a biopsy of my small intestine and I am diagnosed with celiac disease. I am continuing to gain weight and my friends are growing taller while I am not. I start to follow a strict gluten-free diet where everything we eat is cooked from scratch. I am told by the gastro team that my weight could be a result of bloating. My weight could be a result of bloating caused by eating gluten, and that my lack of growth could also be due to having celiacs. And I expect this to change once I am gluten-free. Then in year 8, age 12, despite following a strict gluten-free diet, I still continue to gain weight.
I forgot our year 8 slide, sorry. We'll miss that one out.
Despite following a strict gluten-free diet, I still continue to gain weight and I haven't grown. During this time I go through a period of disordered eating where I don't eat during the day. My stomach has become so swollen that it sticks out at right angles to my body. In January, I'm due to have an annual review with the gastro team, but January comes and goes without an appointment. My mum calls the gastro team to get an appointment, but the backlog from COVID means we never hear back. In June we visit the doctor again and I'm referred to endocrinology as my mum has queried whether it could be PCOS. Then in December 2023, when I'm in year 9, I meet Dr. Steele in endocrinology and she initially suspects a genetic disorder and I have testing. In January the results come back clear and I undergo further tests which show I have cortisol levels 3 times higher than the upper end of normal. In February I have an ultrasound which rules out a tumour on the adrenal glands and by process of elimination means I have a tumour on the pituitary gland, which means I have Cushing's disease. I have an MRI scan which doesn't locate it, so I undergo an IPSS test which confirms the presence of a tumour and suggests it is located on the right side of the pituitary gland. In July, I am admitted to hospital for 5 days to start a course of metyrapone to block my cortisol production. During this time, my weight has continued to increase and I haven't grown since year 6. I am told I will be having surgery at Great Ormond Street and I'm expecting it to be at the start of the next school year. Then in year 10, while awaiting surgery, my cortisol is being monitored and due to still being too high, I increase the dose of my medication and I have still been gaining weight. I am booked in for surgery in December, but on the day it is cancelled and rescheduled for January. The surgery goes ahead in January and initially the outcome looks good and I lose some weight immediately due to the loss of water retention. In February, blood tests show my cortisol is on the rise again. I start taking growth hormone in April, although my bone plates are almost fused, so I don't have much potential to grow. I have to start back on the metyrapone then too, which comes with some challenging side effects. Now I'm in year 11 and I'm 15 and I am still not cured. I grew a few centimetres last year and I'm now still only 4'9½", but I'm not expected to grow much further. I have not fully gone through puberty as Cushing's has blocked this too, and I'm unsure about when and how this will progress. I gained weight earlier in the year and I'm very conscious of what I eat and go to the gym 4 or 5 times a week. I'm being medically managed through year 11 with the plan to have surgery again in July. The outcomes for this are uncertain, as it didn't work last time. The surgeons may need to be less cautious and may potentially remove some or all of the pituitary gland, which could lead to a lifetime of hormone replacement. I don't know if or how this will affect my fertility, and I am most concerned about this for my future.
It's quite emotional hearing her say that. Now I've got to follow that. So I'm Clare.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. Sorry. We'll swap over. Thank you. Thanks for reminding me. This is a bit high-necked. I don't know how I'll do this. So I'm Niamh's mum, Clare. And I've just picked out 2 photos from that slide, which I think most show where Niamh was and where she got to with cushions. The fun-loving, active, she didn't walk anywhere, she just cartwheeled and clambered everywhere, and just happy and confident. I think this photo here demonstrates how much she lost that confidence and the happiness, and she became very, very withdrawn, both within herself and from all the events and the social activities that she used to do. Niamh hates that picture, so I'm just going to hide it now. This is us at Christmas together. It's a nicer, happier picture to look at. So obviously, as a mum, to watch her go from those 2 things was quite distressing. I don't think I'll be able to articulate how much that was compounded by feeling lost in a system that didn't know how to help Niamh. It was tough. And I want to say at this point, I absolutely massively value the NHS. To give a bit more context, 15 years ago when Niamh was a baby, my eldest daughter died from meningitis, having spent 6 weeks on the intensive care unit. So probably not as much as some of you lot here, but I probably have above average interactions with paediatric doctors and nurses, and they are incredible. We've actually got one down here that looks after Niamh at Great Ormond Street. They are incredible, and I'm not be forever grateful for how they look after Niamh and the compassion and the care that they show. So anything that I say now is not a criticism of any of the staff that I've come into contact with, and more just the system, or probably rather the lack of system, which has delayed outcomes, delayed treatment, and led to adverse outcomes for Niamh. So as Niamh said, it was 2024 January when Cushing's was first mentioned due to elevated cortisol levels. So obviously I did what any parent would do, and I went home and I Googled it. And I felt that there was some positive news. That was treatable, and I think you mentioned earlier the 95% success rate, and it all sounded relatively good. But I quickly realised that a lot of that data was for adults, and that the picture for children was a lot less known. I also found published guidelines which had been written by a team of experts, which I think includes yourself, is that right? Which emphasised how important early intervention was for children and adolescents with Cushing's to prevent life-changing consequences. So while I found reading that worrying, I also was reassured that Niamh would be treated as an urgent case. And yet, from hearing the words Cushing's in January, it took 6 months for her to be officially diagnosed, and then a further 7 months for her to have surgery to remove the tumour. It didn't feel urgent a lot of the time. For example, there was at one point I was told she had 3 months wait for an MRI scan. At 5 o'clock the night before her IPSS test, the test was cancelled. I got told she hadn't made the agenda for an MDT, and the next one was a month later. She didn't wait 3 months for an MRI scan, and she had the IPSS test done the next day, and she was on the agenda for the MDT, and that was because I fought and I argued for her to be on those. And that did not sit right with me. As I've said, I massively value the NHS, and I did not want to be that pushy parent, pushing for those things. But I felt, and I'm sure this probably resonates with a lot of you here, that the burden of responsibility fell to me to keep things moving when there were so many different tests, chasing next appointments and what the results and who'd got them and what we were doing for next steps. As well as this, I was also going away and researching literature and reading journals because I wanted to understand the decisions that were being made, why they were being made, and almost predict the next thing that might happen, so I had some understanding about what was coming next. And this is why, I'm here with Dr. Spadeus, because I believe that if there was what she's pushing for, which this is a mouthful, so I'll try and say it, a highly specialised service for rare childhood pituitary adenomas, then I think it could have made a really big difference in even her outcomes. And these are the differences I think it could have made. I'd like to think that by creating that service, it would raise the profile of these tumours. As Niamh's mentioned, it took from May 2021, when I first went to the GP, until December 2023 for her to be seen by an endocrinologist. And obviously Niamh's case is a little bit different because the celiacs meant that some of the symptoms were mistakenly attributed to that. But still, there was a really long wait where I was saying something is not right and people wouldn't see her. And I think the profile is... I had a bit of a tearful conversation where Dr. Spadeus told me that it was never the weight that was a red flag and that it was the height, and I felt guilty that at the time as a single parent, I'd not been one of those parents constantly drawing height lines on the board and not noticing that she wasn't growing because it was the weight that was the thing that stood out the most for me. And obviously that can be caused by anything, can't it? But Helen tells me that it's the height that was the red flag, and I missed it as a parent. So I think a raised profile would mean that GPs and gastro teams and any of the services that were involved in a child's care would pick it up sooner and flag it up and refer it to the right place. Secondly, I think it would give immediate access to expertise. Helen's just talked about the figures and how rare it is, and particularly in Cushing's, he said less than 5 a year. So we can't expect at local level people to know how to deal with it. We are from Leeds, and that's, I believe, a relatively big hospital trust, but we have not met a paediatric nurse or doctor who has ever met a Niamh before. And what that means is that at every single point, literally every single blood test result, or do we need a medication change? Should we have another MRI scan? What does the MRI mean? Every single point needs to go back either to the adult endocrinology team in Leeds or to within Trust MDT, or later when we were lucky enough to get on the agenda for the HPAT team, to them. And it just causes constant delays all the way. Thirdly, I will be forever grateful to the lovely team at Great Ormond Street for allowing us to have care there. Niamh had her surgery in Great Ormond Street, and we are due to go back in July for that. But care across trusts become more fragmented, and I think at that point, that was when she really slipped through the net, and there were some really big waits and frustrations. And then the normal escalation process of PALS can't really help because Leeds don't know what Great Ormond Street are doing, and it becomes useless. The clearest example of that was in June when we got that diagnosis, and by then the HPAT and GOSH were already involved. Leeds believed that Great Ormond Street had accepted Leeds as a patient and that she'd been waitlisted for surgery. And although wait lists are how long is a piece of string, we thought that it would be around 6 weeks. We were expecting her to have surgery in September. And September came and went, and I got in touch with Leeds and was asking what's going on, and they didn't know what was going on. And then October came and went, and I didn't have contact with Great Ormond Street to be able to ask them what was going on. I'm a teacher, and it got to half term, and I spent that half term just trying to get as many people as possible to help me. I phoned my local councillor, my local MP. I even tried a medical negligence thing to see if I had the weight of them behind me, would that give some, help? And eventually, and I'm a little bit embarrassed to say this, to be honest, I just Googled the CEO of Great Ormond Street and sent them an email in a desperate bid to get their attention. What it turns out had transpired is that Leeds thought that they'd been accepted, but it hadn't been a formal process. And I don't want to point fingers or blame anything, but I do believe that if this specialist service and a formal pathway existed, that wouldn't have happened and she wouldn't have fallen through that net. And finally, what I think has been one of the challenges sort of mentally for both Niamh and as a family, I think what it would allow is for there to be like a more holistic picture and a greater understanding of the journey that we're about to go on. My consultant was also desperate for information and was at a loss for help, and so she attended the Success Charity Conference in Manchester and met Helen. And then I got put in touch with Helen in October, which is 9 months after Cushing's had been mentioned. And I'm sure you can imagine that we talked at length on the phone. And if I'm honest, probably left with more questions. But it was the first time that I had fully understood what my daughter was going through. I'd only thought that it was about height and weight, the obvious things. But now, when you talked a lot about, it's been talked a lot about, say, the complex HPX axis, and it's so much more, all the hormone imbalances. And one of the things that Niamh mentioned, not understanding, but we even more are at a loss of it now, is how will her fertility be affected? And I feel like that'd be something else that I'd hope would be brought into that system. Yeah, just a big picture of knowing. I think, when we found out she wasn't going to grow, that was a year and a bit, and we'd never known that really, we should have known that was never going to be a chance for her, because she was already gone past that point. So at that point, when Niamh found out she wasn't going to grow, that was devastating for her. Just some preparation to know what we were to expect, really. Ultimately, it's nearly 5 years since I went to the GP. And what I'd like to think, if Helen gets away and at some point that specialist service is created, is that, well, I wouldn't be standing here in the first place, but if I was, there'd be a greater chance that I'd be standing here saying that she'd already been cured. That she'd be standing here taller than me, because she should, because I'm short, but her dad's 6 foot, so I'd like, and that we'd have greater certainty about her future, and there'd have been less impact on Niamh's well-being. I am immensely proud of her. She is the strongest person, and she's shown so much resilience through this. But I don't think it needed to be like this. And I like to think that if a specialist service is created, it'll make sure that the next children don't have to go through it in the same way that Niamh did.